mutiny, dissent. Chorus for a permanent solution to the post of Congress President. Over the last few days, the Grand Old Party of India and the Gandhi dynasty, which has controlled India's Congress Party for generations now, faced this and much more. The Congress found itself in the midst of a growing tumult within the party itself. 23 senior Congress leaders wrote a dissent letter wanting course correction, demanding a full-time chief for the party and not an interim president. What followed was a stormy CWC meet, but the end result was along expected lines.
Congress President clearly said, we are a large family. We have differences and different views on many occasions. But in the end, we come together as one.
Sonia Gandhi continues to stay party's interim president for another 6 months.
All the 11 crore voters of the Congress Party in the last elections, that was roughly 19.5, round it off to 20% of the people who voted supported the Congress Party. I'm sure all of them today will be extremely disappointed. Who will tell the Congress Party how do we need to rework our strategy and tactics, improve our organization, resolve our leadership problems? Who's going to do that? That is the job of the people who are within the party, who have political experience, who understand the organization well, who are committed to the ideology.
It was a little over a year ago, on 10th of August 2019, that Sonia Gandhi once again took over the reins of the Congress Party. This happened after day-long deliberations of the Congress Working Committee, reversing the events of 2017 when Sonia Gandhi had stepped down to make way for her son. On 16th of December 2017, after years of uncertainty and months of speculation about his elevation, Rahul Gandhi had taken over the mantle from his mother. The party's longest-serving president, who had been at the helm for almost 2 decades. Following the 2019 electoral loss, Congress President Rahul Gandhi blamed self-serving senior Congress leaders who sacrificed the interests of the party to secure victories for their children. Saying that he found himself alone in the fight against the Modi government, Rahul quit the post, setting the condition that the next party chief not be a Gandhi. As it turned out, the Congress veterans rallied around his mother Sonia Gandhi, convincing her once again to provide leadership, albeit as interim president. In 1998, when Sonia took over the reins as Congress's president, she too was a novice. But in all these years, her name has become synonymous with the party. Sonia Gandhi's transformation from playing Rajiv's wife to a reluctant politician and then to leading the party with political acumen has been nothing short of phenomenal.
She has had a self-confessed distaste for politics. She fought like a tigress, in her own words, to try and dissuade her husband from joining politics, and then life turned a full circle. She had to succumb to the pressure from her party men and take the plunge. She didn't know the language. She was absolutely petrified of giving public speeches. It was a huge learning curve, and she had to really start from the scratch, and which she did.
When Sonia Gandhi took over from Sitaram Kesri in April 1998, chaos and confusion reigned supreme. Leaders were leaving it in droves, and a fragmented Congress ruled in just 4 states: Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, Mizoram and Nagaland. A self-confessed, reluctant politician, Sonia's debut was far from spectacular. Within a year, there was rebellion in her party. Sharad Pawar, P.A. Sangma and Tariq Anwar raised the foreigner issue. She resigned as president, but later took back her decision. The 3 dissenters were expelled from the party. In the elections that followed, the Congress was routed and ended up with its worst electoral performance till then. After 3 consecutive defeats in 1996, 1998 and 1999, Sonia was instrumental in bringing the party back to power in 2004. But the path to her political ascendancy was always marked by one key detriment: her foreign nationality.
This is my home. This is my country. For all of my 48 years here, the RSS, BJP and other parties taunted me to shame me for my birth. I was born to proud and honest parents. I will never be ashamed of it.
मेरा लक्ष्य प्रधानमंत्री का पद नहीं है.
In 2004, Sonia Gandhi decided not to be the Prime Minister. Instead, she let Dr. Manmohan Singh become the Prime Minister, while she remained head of the party.
Country will be saved in Dr. Manmohan Singh's hand.
The 2004 government was one of coalition, and it is to Sonia Gandhi's credit that in a time span of about 6 years, she managed to forge relationships and build bridges with parties which once were anti-Congress.
She, in fact, surprised everybody by stitching together a coalition, the United Front, just before the Lok Sabha elections. She went to Mr. Sharad Pawar. She forgot her bitterness. She went to Sharad Pawar's house, didn't stand on ego, walked across to Ramvilas Paswan's house, held up-teen meetings with Harkishan Singh, brought all the Deve Gowda, brought all these disparate elements together, and much to everybody's surprise, the United Front under her came to power in the UPA came to power in 2004, and then the rest is history. Crowning glory of a 19-year-old political career must be how she renunciated, turned down a chance to become the Prime Minister of India in 2004. It was theirs, it was hers for the taking, it was there for the asking. The Congress Parliamentary Party had elected her. The UPA had elected her, they'd chosen her unanimously as its leader. Yet, she chose to turn it down. I don't know of another instance in India's political history where somebody has turned down Prime Ministership of India.
In the 2009 general elections, when the UPA retained power, the Congress won 206 Lok Sabha seats, which was then the highest total by any party since 1991. In 2014, still under Sonia Gandhi's stewardship, the Congress suffered its worst election defeat. Of the 12 people who have led the 132-year-old Congress party after 1947, 4 belonged to the Gandhi-Nehru family. When Rahul Gandhi officially took over on 16th of December 2017 as the president, he was the 5th from his family. But the connection began long before 1947, when a middle-aged lawyer-cum-independence activist from Allahabad joined the Indian National Congress. Motilal Nehru presided over the Indian National Congress's Provincial Conference of 1907, but it wasn't until the massacre of Jallianwala Bagh that he and his son Jawaharlal jumped into politics full-time. Motilal presided as party president in 1919 and then again in 1928. In 1929, his son took over the reins when the clarion call for Purna Swaraj was sounded at the Lahore session of the party. Jawaharlal Nehru went on to helm the party in 3 spells: 1929-30, 1936-37, and then post-independence from 1951 till 1954, when he was the Prime Minister of India. When Jawaharlal Nehru's daughter Indira became the Congress President in the late 1950s, she was instrumental in dismissing the country's first communist government in Kerala. After the death of Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, then Congress President K. Kamaraj was instrumental in Indira being elected by the Congress Legislative Party to be the new Prime Minister. Tensions grew within the party, and in 1969, Indira was expelled by Congress President Morarji Desai, her main political opponent within the party. Indira managed to break away a majority of party members and formed a new faction around her, the New Congress Party, which went on to perform very well in the next round of elections. From days of Gungi Gudiya to the all-powerful Durga, Indira became one of the most influential presidents of the Congress Party, but she also became one of the most controversial. Many detractors point out that she destroyed the internal party democracy within the Congress and fostered a culture of nepotism, something that the party never fully recovered from.
She was not averse to taking risks. She quickly learned that if you want to survive, you need to be, on the front foot. And she had an iron grip on her party, just very much like the current Prime Minister's hold over his party. She had an iron-like grip. She had a tremendous rapport with the masses, and she could literally get away with it. She got the official Congress candidate defeated as president and got VV Giri installed. She split the party. She was not averse to splitting the party. I think it split more than once under her, and she always emerged stronger.
After the assassination of Indira, the baton passed on to her son Rajiv Gandhi. His mother's sudden death had overnight turned him into the Prime Minister of India and the President of the Congress Party. Rajiv Gandhi held the Congress President's post till May 1991, when another assassination killed another member of the Nehru-Gandhi family. And as history repeated itself, another political greenhorn from the family was suddenly expected to take over the reins. Rajiv's widow, Sonia. She refused. The Indian National Congress, when it was born, was meant to be a pressure outlet for native discontent. Formed by a British civil servant in 1885, the INC has come a long way. Even the founding members would have not imagined that the Congress would go on to demand first Home Rule and then independence.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially.
Formed by Alan Octavian Hume, a former member of the Imperial Civil Service, the Congress had its first conference of representatives in Bombay, and Womesh Chandra Banerjee, a successful lawyer from Calcutta and an Anglophile, was the president of this first session of the Indian National Congress. 72 delegates from across the country took part in the session. A Parsi intellectual was the president of the Calcutta Conference in 1886. Dadabhai Naroji, the co-founder of INC, was an educator, a businessman and a social reformer. He was also the first Asian to be elected to the British Parliament. He was also the president in the Lahore session of 1898 and 1906. Badruddin Tayyibji was the first Muslim president of the INC, heading the Madras Conference in 1887. George Yule, a Scottish businessman, was the first non-Indian president of the Congress in 1888. By the time Gopal Krishna Gokhale presided over the Benares Conference in 1905, many within the party wanted to take extremist steps against the British government. And in 1907, the Congress saw two factions come into existence: the moderates, or Naram Dal, led by Gokhale, and the extremists, or the Garam Dal, led by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. In 1917, Annie Besant was elected the Congress president and presided over the Calcutta Conference. Besant, a sociologist and an advocate of Indian self-rule, became the first woman president of the Indian National Congress. The founder of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty, Motilal Nehru, presided over the Amritsar session of INC in 1919. In 1920, Lala Lajpat Rai, regarded by many as Punjab Kesri, became the Congress president. A freedom fighter, he also controversially asked for India to be divided into a Hindu and Muslim state in 1923. But it was 4 years later, in 1924, that Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi became the president of INC's Belgaum session. By then, Gandhi was one of the most important members of the nationalist movement. A year later, Congress had its second female president in Sarojini Naidu, who presided over the 1925 session in Kanpur. By the time Motilal Nehru presided over another Congress session in 1928, a tussle developed between the two sections of the party, one which accepted dominion status and the other which wanted complete independence. Backed by his father, Jawaharlal Nehru presided over the next Congress session in Lahore.
Nehru was very, very different. Nehru was a staunch secularist. He had a very scientific temper, very little patience for for superstition, and maybe a lot of people believe that he was out of synch because he had the benefit of education. He had studied in England. He was a learned man. A lot of others were not in step with him, but Nehru was also a visionary. He knew that that was the way forward, and that's why he stuck to his guns, and by sheer force of his personality, he propelled the country into a particular direction.
The 1931 Karachi Congress session, led by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, endorsed the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. 1938 saw Subhash Chandra Bose as the president of the Haripura session of Congress. He was re-elected the president the next year, but had to resign. He was opposed to the pacifist movement led by M.K. Gandhi, and that caused a rift within the party. During the tumultuous period of transfer of power from Britain to India, J.B. Kripalani presided over the Meerut session of Indian National Congress. Over the course of its existence, the Indian National Congress has come to be known as a party steeped in dynastic politics. But apart from the Nehru-Gandhis, there were others who too left their mark on the party and its functioning. In the post-independence era, the party was steered by Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy between the years 1960 and 1963. A prominent leader from Andhra Pradesh, and later went on to become the President of India from 1977 to 1982. K. Kamaraj succeeded Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy as the President of the INC from 1964 to 1967, presiding over Bhubaneswar, Durgapur and Jaipur sessions. Kamaraj was regarded as the kingmaker in Indian politics and played an important role in the elevation of Lal Bahadur Shastri as India's Prime Minister after Jawaharlal Nehru's death. Between 1970 and 71, the party was led by Babu Jagjivan Ram. Commonly regarded as Babuji, he was a leader of the backward classes, untouchables and exploited labour. After the imposition of emergency by Indira Gandhi, Jagjivan Ram, along with several other leaders, quit the Congress to join the Janata Party alliance. Shankar Dayal Sharma, a lawyer by profession, served as president of INC between 1972 and 74. He went on to become the 9th president of India. During the crucial period between 1975-77, when Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had imposed emergency, Devakanta Barua served as Congress president. It was Barua, an Indira loyalist, who came up with the remark, "India is Indira, Indira is India." However, he later left Indira's side to join the anti-Indira faction when the Congress split. P.V. Narasimha Rao was the president of Congress from 1992 to 1996. He was also India's Prime Minister at this time. As the Prime Minister, Rao inherited an economy on the verge of international default and a foreign policy that needed to change after the Soviet Union's collapse.
That was the only time in the Congress party's history that the power of the Gandhis within the Congress was at its lowest ebb. Without saying it in so many words, without stating it, he was trying to veer the Congress away from the Gandhis, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, and he had a frosty relationship at best.
After Rao led the Congress to defeat in 1996, the party installed Sitaram Kesri as his successor. There was a clamour for Sonia Gandhi to either join politics or to campaign for the Congress. And finally, Sonia reluctantly agreed, beginning what was to become a 19-year stint before she finally handed over the baton to Rahul Gandhi in December 2017, only to be back in an interim capacity once again in August 2019.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.